This is the Nomestia podcast, where we return to home as a paste. You are welcome here.
Okay, now we're recording.
Yeah, so I wanted to do a useful one because basically I've been meeting a few people who are in vans and they come and chat and they say, oh, it's so great to see children with you because it gives me hope. And the hope is, what I'm hearing is, the hope is that they can continue in some level of freedom with their life.
So like a young couple,
Yeah.
quite a lot, it's like young couples who are like maybe thinking about having children, who are doing the van life thing, who are like, oh, maybe it is doable. They see us and they're like, oh, maybe it is doable with children.
And they're not necessarily referring to having to do it within van life, so to speak. But I think it's the kind of couple who definitely feel and obviously taste more freedom than we ever felt at that point in our lives. So jealous.
So jealous.
Where are we recording from today, actually?
We're back in our favourite, well, I say our favourite, my favourite car park in Tagazoo. It's the one just overlooking the beach, 30 dirham a night. Easy.
Mohammed comes and collects his 30.
Yeah. The village, I mean, I would call it a town, but I think technically it's a village. But it's right on your doorstep. So I personally, for the groceries, it's quite useful. You can just be like, oh, I forgot to buy this, and just nip.
Yeah, it's your favourite thing, that.
Yeah. So you don't actually have to think too much ahead.
Yeah. Partly because Tagazoo, partly because when I've been hanging out on the coast, it's been too windy, and Tagazoo weirdly isn't as windy. We even moved to Tamrat, which was like a town just down, windier.
Yeah.
What the
weirdly.
fuck? So weird. So yeah, being in Tagazoo, we're just having a bit of a time here, and then we're going to be spending some time going back up the coast to the places that we've enjoyed.
Yeah.
Before heading out of Morocco. It will come that we will have to leave at some point.
We'll have to leave. Yeah.
But we've got exciting plans ahead. Where we're basically going for a list that we've created. So basically I'm part of a few wild schooling groups because before I started on this journey, I wanted to join some kind of... I hate Facebook.
Yes.
But I don't want to have to scroll Reddit either for answers to questions.
I think Facebook were in touch about sponsoring, actually.
Well, now they're paying people a lot of money to stay on that app and post, so...
Yes, because they know it's only boomers that use it. Can I say that word?
I don't know if you're allowed, but if there is a boomer listening...
That is quite ageist,
To be fair, though, that is their generation of... Is that actually what that's actually? Because we know we could call it like Gen Z. Actually, that is a question.
Oh, no, let's not get into that,
No, but
because nobody knows.
No, but are they actually called boomers?
I think we're millennials.
Yeah, but are they actually called boomers, or is that what the millennials call?
Yeah, but it is a certain...
Okay,
yeah.
Is it...
No, they're technically baby boomers.
Oh, right.
So the boomer thing, baby boomers, are who were sort of born in the post-war period. When everybody was back home from the war and shagging for their...
Oh, yeah,
That's
that makes
why
sense.
there was a baby boom.
Boomer. I've not really thought about it. Yeah, so I think that...
that's why there's so many old people around.
In the vans.
Oh, well, I don't know.
Because they're retired. The van lifers, the retired ones, tend to
Yeah.
be.
It's funny that they're in the vans, though, because they only bought their house for like 30p or something, wasn't it? I don't really understand. What are they doing in their vans? Just stay in your lovely little house that you paid off years ago.
They're having a lovely time. They've got the best of both worlds. So there's a lot of posts in Facebook groups on these wild schooling, homeschooling groups that have kind of the same ilk, like the same kind of questions. So I thought it might be useful just to share more about... Because we started the podcast on our education,
schooling. On our schooling, yeah.
So I want to go back to kind of that chat, but what we're doing within our home for our children's schooling, because that's a question that comes up a lot of the time with a lot of people who see us and meet us. And also just to do a note, which I have done on the first one, but I like to do this because, over the years I've dealt with a lot of shit. So I like to say, in this instance, when I'm speaking to schooling, I am a trained primary teacher with a bachelor in education aged 5 to 11, so I can speak to school in this professional way as well as being a parent.
You are qualified to talk about it from both sides, basically.
I am, yes.
Say if you're doing a school essay, the question at the beginning of the essay is, can you have children and have freedom?
Yeah.
Obviously, very much the have freedom bit, very much in inverted commas, because as we discussed last week, you're always going to be part of the system, Samantha, aren't you?
She's still not. She's still not.
I'm so glad to be out of the system in my van in the middle of Morocco, just being out the system.
She's not bothering with her MOT or insurance.
No.
She's not bothering.
No. She's out of the system, Naomi.
She's not using the roads. She's not even using the roads.
Don't take the piss.
I'm not taking the piss. But I was writing about that. Well, because, I'm writing a book. Not that we've mentioned it at all.
Oh,
no.
Are you writing a book, Naomi?
I'm writing another book. Hopefully this one won't be banned on Amazon. I was writing about, I was writing about what the system is. But then I was like, this is too detailed. Everyone knows what the system is. You don't need a definition of what the system is. But then I was like, yeah, but people like Samantha didn't know what the system is, did she? So basically, this is going to be a lot about the system. It's going to be because at the end of the day, some of this might be uncomfortable, and some people will agree or disagree, and I don't really give a shit either way. You either agree or you don't agree, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm here for discourse, sure, but that's what's great about podcasts, because I've spent 10 years with people who disagree with everything that I fucking say and tell me, and I don't have to listen to it on a podcast and just chat bollocks, and then if someone wants to write a comment on Spotify or email, then go ahead. But I'm going to say it from our perspective and from my own experience and from what I'm witnessing.
Yeah.
So schooling, the system of schooling is set up in the way that it's set up to prime our children for the system of worker in our society, right? So you can argue the toss on pros and cons of school, because there are pros and cons to school.
Absolutely.
But there's pros and cons to homeschooling. Well, we're not calling it homeschooling, it's home education. It's another technical term we should be aware of. What we're talking about is that essentially overall what the uproar is, what the anger is, what the frustration is, and why we're talking about people asking about this freedom aspect is because they want to know that they can raise children away from the binds of the system that creates this very uniformed kind of end goal for all children, even if they're not the kind of child that would necessarily thrive in that environment, because there are children that don't thrive in that environment.
Yeah, exactly. Can you have children and have
That's
freedom?
the title of the podcast.
Yeah.
So.
Well, just went down a bit of a rabbit hole. The first one was like the definitions of the different terms we might use.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're talking about home education. How does that differ to, say, homeschooling?
It doesn't, because homeschooling isn't a thing, because a school is an institution, you're not an institution. So you cannot use the term homeschooling. It's an incorrect term.
Ah, that's interesting, because I was under the impression that you could describe someone as homeschooling if they were literally, like, to the letter following a curriculum, but at home.
I mean, if you ask education freedom for education, they will categorically tell you that you're not homeschooling, even if you're using a curriculum. Maybe if you're somebody who's joined one of those external homeschooling kind of, I don't know what they're technically called, but they're basically like an online school that you can join. But even them, I mean, I don't want to go into like the ins and outs of certain things that just make this very boring, but they do exist for people who are in a bit of a sticky wicket. On a sticky wicket. What's the word? On a sticky wicket.
You're on a bit of a sticky wicket.
Yes. What's that line from?
The second Bridget Jones film.
That's it. It's Bridget. It's like people who have gone to other countries to home educate their children, and the school require them to be registered at school, but they don't want to be registered in the country's school, because that would mean that they would have to follow the country's curriculum, and the country's curriculum then the exams then from that. So then they register their children with an external body, which would be connected to, say, the UK if they were from the UK, and we're able to utilise them and say, we use their curriculum and we use their exams, even though that's very, very loose on the... So those do exist, but
so,
no.
Just to sum up, home education, the general term for people who are just not sending their children to school, basically.
Yeah. And then there's world schooling that people utilise.
It's a bit
It's airy-fairy.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to use the term wanky,
But actually,
but yeah,
works, fully.
airy-fairy works.
You can't say
But I remember...
there's literally Facebook groups with world schooling with like hundreds, thousands.
Yeah,
of people.
okay, so fine. I mean, I said it sort of. I did say it when I think it was when we were having like a bit of a leaving do in Margate.
No, you didn't.
You did. No, but completely tongue in cheek. Oh,
right.
And I was like, actually, we're world schooling, Anna. And it was like, fuck off. It's like, yeah, fuck off. So yeah, I mean, it's a load of old toss, really.
And then
World schooling,
the other one that everyone uses,
unschooling.
Yeah.
See, unschooling, interesting.
Well, unschooling, don't you dare use that term online. I try my best. Sometimes I think a tag gets through because I'm like, oh, that tag will hit like a certain. I mean, let's be honest, my reels aren't traveling, so I don't know why I'm buffering.
Yeah.
But like, if you use the word unschooling, just be very, very careful because you are still having to report. And if they hear you even like whisper the word unschooling, they're going to be like, no.
So for the record, we're not unschooling.
No, we are not unschooling or deschooling. No. We're home educating.
We're home educating.
Yeah.
So yeah, you said deschooling then. Also going to ask about that because is there a subtle difference between deschooling and unschooling?
From what I've read, no, I don't think there really is. I would argue that deschooling kind of comes from when you take your children out of school and they are having to unravel from school, from the schooling that they've had, to then unravel into home education. That, to me, that little period of time when we did that was, for me, deschooling. But I don't know about how people are utilising that in general.
Then, obviously, we're not unschooling. But how would you sort of describe unschooling?
Well, I mean, again, it's going to be family to family, but a lot of families would probably define that as not following a curriculum and engaging in daily life learning.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. These terms, they can be a bit sort of wafting, a bit nebulous, can't they? They can be like a bit like that. Sort of, each person has their own kind of definition of it.
Well, it's like, every school really has a different vibe, and every school approaches the curriculum in a different way. Whether that's a school, because, I've worked in several schools over the years. I moved a lot. The grass was always greener. There would be schools where they would have curriculum questions, as their topics. Or there'd be schools that didn't change the curriculum for 20 years and schools which change their curriculum every year and schools which have enforced teachers to move year groups every 1 to 2 years. Do you remember those ones?
Yeah, that's the thing.
And so every school has within its binds some kind of freedom. And so then parents, obviously, for their children and families and they also have within the binds of we have to do something with our children because they are not at school. They have that scope to do what works for them.
Yeah.
Right?
We were going to talk about the misconceptions of home education from around the world.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we can talk first-hand experience of that because it's usually the first thing that comes up in discussion when we talk with people from different countries, isn't it?
Yeah. So first of all, in the UK, you are able to... Well, we're going to talk about some recent rule and law changes in the UK that happened only a few weeks ago. But broadly speaking, you can what is called deregister your child from school. Now, what that means in the UK, which is very different to most other countries, is that you do not have a relationship with a school. It was basically essentially one person who was responsible in each area, each council, for those home educating families, and then they would liaise directly. So you would let the school know that you were deregistering the child, and it's as simple as giving them literally no notice. You just can deregister them one day on the same day that they leave, which is highly recommended by the Freedom for Education, because then it doesn't give time to do anything drastic to prevent that. And then they would inform the LA, the local authority, and the local authority would instantly get in touch and say, introduce yourselves, your children, their ages. They ask initially for a report on what you're doing in the UK. I don't know how it's going to be impacted with the law change, but that's what they did initially. And then you can ask for Education for Freedom is amazing, by the way, for anybody who is like a charity. They're free, do it all for free, all off their own backs, and they give you all this information. And you can basically check how you word it, what the emails should look like, how you report. And I would highly, 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 highly recommend only using that resource and ensuring that you abide by everything that they say. Yeah.
You have to just make sure that you're not, you don't sort of accidentally talk yourself into trouble, basically.
Yeah. And so you need to ensure that, and when we say talk yourself into trouble, what we mean is like you're doing what they're expecting you to do as a home educating family. And so you write a report on the different subjects, and they can give you a bit longer, because how can you write, like, teachers cannot write a report on a child within 2 weeks of like being together. So I ask for the leeway that they can offer. They don't always have to give it to you, but at the time they could. And then you write a yearly report. That's how the education system for home education works in the UK. Now, that is a very, very different system to the rest of the world, predominantly. So I can't speak for every country, but I've done a lot of research into quite a lot of countries, because during this process, obviously, we're trying to find somewhere that we want to basically live long term. And we've spoken briefly about how van life isn't forever. So what's important is my first port of call when I'm looking at a country is, what are the home education rules? And if the home education rules are there is no home education, then that country is off my list straight away.
Yeah, because the girls, they just turned 8.
Yes.
So we've got another good 10 years to have to deal with that.
Yes.
8 to 10 years, I guess.
Yeah. So, for example, this is something I want to speak to. A lot of people say to me, well, if I was doing, like, the older generations who agree with what we're doing would say, well, if it was me, I would go to X country and I would just do that. So to be clear, you will always likely have to do some kind of curriculum and some kind of exam. The people who are telling you that they're home educating in countries like Spain and Portugal, Italy is another one that's been quite high profile recently, they're lying. Because they're not abiding by the laws of that country. And I'm sick to my back fucking teeth of reading about the bullshit, the lies, we're doing this, we have a home educating like community in Spain. Well, how the fuck do you do that when I've literally spoken to several Spanish people who tell me that children have to go to school in Spain, and if you Google it, children have to go to school in Spain, which means you're then dancing in a very, very grey area. Now, recently, this grey area, for example, is in Italy, right? And there was a family. Now, I don't know the ins and outs, but I can tell you that the arguments for both sides are pretty strong online, so I don't know. Now, that family were living what would be deemed off-grid in Italy, and their children were taken off them. They were saying that their children were taken off and they were American. Oh, were they American or were they the UK? Were they British? I think they might have been British.
I can't remember.
But their children were taken off them because the children's standard of living was not good enough. There were arguments in the home educating community that the children were taken off them as by the Italian government to prove a point, to make a stand, to make it clear that we're not having you come into our country, buy €1 houses, live ferally, and think that you can home educate your children.
Yeah, I think they were like you said, they were nipping it in the bud, weren't they?
But then the other argument was the write-ups, were like children weren't showering, and it's like, mate, my child sometimes goes a week without showering.
Yeah.
But, it's like, and that was in a house with a bath and a shower, That's not just because we live in a van.
I was going to say, that was even pre-van life. Christ.
So, I don't know. Like, the arguments were pretty... Like, some people were saying, I know the situation, and it's more than you think. Okay, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But either way, the fact that they were home educating... Okay, fine, the family had the children taken off them. That's one discussion. That happens, right? I mean, I worked in schools. It happens. But the fact they were home educating is what was taking precedence over every single comment, article, post.
That became the story.
it became the story. Why? That's what I want to, that's what I couldn't understand. Okay, so then there's countries where it's absolutely outright banned, and people don't realise this. So it's outright banned in most countries. It's outright banned in Scandinavian countries, you know, Germany. So we met this family on the ferry coming over. I don't know if we mentioned this on our last podcast, but basically they were saying that they completely have disappeared. I don't get it, but apparently they have.
Yeah, so Samantha, it is possible, if you're listening. I don't even remember if her name was Samantha. It's just what a name that I've plucked out.
Didn't even say it was online. You didn't even meet her.
But anyway, this family were doing it, Samantha. They were doing it.
Yeah,
somehow they were crossing between countries with a passport.
Something about a private company can still give you the passport. I don't fucking know.
Oh, mate. I mean, that sounds like backstreet passport.
And also, I don't know. And it was something like they could still because I was like, but how do you insure your van? And they were like,
oh God,
do you remember?
all of that,
and they
honestly.
were like, yeah, there's a company that do it, which means you don't have to have a base country. I was like,
okay, that is fascinating.
But like, you know, that's how extreme it has to go because the German families, there's a lot of them in buses, Dutch. In German, home educating. I mean, we were hanging out with a French family only yesterday. I was speaking to her actually about it. So like in France, you can't home educate, but they're here with a 7-year-old. So I'm like, cool, how are you doing that? And she said that something to do with his health and then explaining that you have to be out the country and then, you know, like there's always these workarounds, but like, and then they give you a grace period of a year. And like the German families are saying the same, like if you cannot be in Germany, you basically don't exist in Germany for however long. And then you come back and the child goes back into school. So that's, so, and then we were meeting German families who were saying that they were doing that. Do you remember that family we kept bumping into in Portugal? He was saying that to us, wasn't he? He was telling us about it. And he was saying that they go back to Germany and they only had very, very young children. But when they went back, I think the little one was starting school and that she would go into school for like a month or two or whatever. And then they would go again. So there are workarounds, but the easiest place is actually the UK. The other places that are, again, like easier is like South America. South America has like looser home educating laws. And the other place is Southeast Asia. So that, again, is like an easier place because if you're not exactly a resident of these places and you're technically still a resident in the UK, well, that's where you're going to end up in that, again, grey zone. But you are always going to have to navigate bureaucracy.
Yeah, I mean, that was the twist for me, that the UK was actually the most
plot
relaxed.
Twist.
Massive plot twist.
Plot twist.
Oh, I see. The grass isn't always green on the other side.
Oh, yeah, that's the thing, isn't it?
Hey.
I will say actually about that, sorry. You know, Portugal is a massive place where everybody is like, go to Portugal, buy land.
Oh, buy land in Portugal, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so I've been reading a lot of problem posts about it. Anyway, lots to discuss, but we won't. The one thing is that people are denied residency in Portugal if they're home educating their children. But everyone tells you that it's legal in Portugal. So I don't really understand who's...
Because on paper, in general, Portugal is quite attractive because in general... it is easier, in inverted commas, to get residency. Isn't it? So that's why it's an attractive prospect for someone wanting to actually leave the UK fully.
Well, they're having to deal with like lawyers and all sorts. It sounds fucking exhausting.
But if you've got stupid children, then that cocks it right up.
Yeah, or a dog, probably.
Or
the dog just
dog,
adds to it.
Just to have animals or children. No, the next thing we were going to talk about was the community and socialisation, because that's always a thing.
Yes.
That's always... I mean, we're kind of going through, like, things that people say to you when you say that you're home educating your child.
The questions they ask.
Yes. Oh, what about socialisation?
Yes.
What about community?
Yes. I think it's a really good... I've got a lot to say on that, so let's try not to go too long on it. But... So... when a child is in school, the community and socialisation aspect of it I find really interesting. And I always think about a few incidences that I've had over the years that really tugged on my heartstrings with children. And one of them was particularly so. This I always remember, and you know this story, I've spoken about it before, but there was this boy that I absolutely loved, and I had him for 2 years, year 5 and 6. And he was a quirky, fun, creative. He gave me very much like my son Arlo vibes, you know, if you were looking, now you look back retrospectively. And he was in a group of, well, you met that cohort more than once.
Lads.
Fucking lads.
I think, yeah, that's the only way to describe them, just lads.
They were so laddie. Football. I mean, I loved them, but they were like, school was not for them. They could not sit still. They just wanted to play football. And this poor boy, I remember he broke down towards going to secondary school to me, and he sat in the book corner and he cried, and he was talking to me and he said, look, miss, I don't know how I'm ever going to make friends, you know, because I don't have friends. Like, and he was asking, why don't I like what these lads like? Because his experience was a school of 100 children for 6-7 years with these same children, lads, and hadn't seen, apart from maybe anyone that he might interact with outside of school, which doesn't happen because people don't have the time necessarily to make that friend, unless they're going to like outside clubs and parents have the capacity to, like, I don't know, like for Arlo's into Lego, so then you would take him to a Lego club. But it's like there's so much to do as a parent to try and, like, with the community and socialisation, you'd hope that that would just exist within school if you were already going to school, right? And for him, that experience didn't land because he just couldn't. And I hope, I don't know what happened, but I can just hope and pray that when he went to school, he found his group and he just had the best time.
I think that's the thing, because the primary school you were working at that point was a particularly small school, to the point where the classes were mixed
year groups. Yes,
mixed year groups.
But that's the thing. In England, there are plenty of those schools, you know, and you're going to be ending up with someone that you might not fucking like. And like, the thing is like, not only that, but then you're limited to break times. So you're forced into friendships that you, like you say, you didn't enjoy, and then you have break time. And so the argument of schools will always be, well, they have break time to play with who they want to play with or whatever, but you're still in the same cohorts, you're still with the same ages predominantly. The schools even have to split the same ages into the same playgrounds, you know? So you're only ever going to be mixing with the same age children, with the same perspective, with the same point of life, with no broader experience of life than you. Yeah. And then you are having a 20-minute break, enjoy that, and then you sit down on the carpet and they have talk partners. So now your community and socialisation is, you're going to have to sit on specific spots on the carpet often, that teachers do, to avoid issues that might arise, you know. Johnny and Dave at the back dicking around, they don't get to sit together. I mean, it exists, and from the younger years, like, they always sit together, and we don't want the little shits at the back sitting together. So we're going to have Johnny, Dave and split up. And rather than every time we sit on the carpet, telling Johnny and Dave not to sit next to each other, we just have carpet spaces. And so in the carpet spaces, and Paloma experienced this, ask her, she can do a podcast about it. Yeah. She would have to turn to a talk partner. And Paloma used to refuse to talk to her talk partner. And every parents' evening, we would always get the feedback, it would be nice if Paloma could try and be a little bit more, she's just, I don't know how to put it, like, what's the word? You know, she's just not really, you mean she's just a bit of a dick when she has to work with her talk partner, and literally is like, why fuck would I want to talk to you? Like, and she would, like, tell it on her face, ignore them, so on and so forth.
I wasn't going to say anything, but the unfriendly apple does not fall far from the unfriendly tree. Naomi.
Van life suits me perfectly. Listen, the thing is, right, is that we are forcing a socialisation aspect that is not real world, okay? Yes, I'm not here saying they don't socialise at school. I'm saying it's a forced socialisation institution that does not promote the socialisation and community that can exist in a more natural, more evolving community space that we would have had pre these institutions, right? And I'll shout about it. You know, I will continue to speak about that. So what I've witnessed and what I think is fascinating is that our children have the ability to talk to a more broader age group of children. Look, the twins will still be the twins. You know, they are sometimes the twins from The Shining, and they're twins, right? It's very rare that they're from The Shining, but sometimes if a little kid comes near them that's the age of 2, they're just not into little kids.
No.
They're not.
It's an absolute no.
They've been like that from the age of 2.
Yeah.
And they continue to be like that
No, absolutely not. No.
But Arlo is the opposite of that.
Yeah.
And little 2-year-olds will follow him around and he will play with them. But in terms of their ability to engage, it's been fascinating. And especially doing world schooling.
Yeah.
They've met a lot of like children that don't speak the same language. Now we tell them repeatedly that they're blessed that they speak English. Blessed that they speak
absolutely.
English. And so they can meet. They met a French girl here and they met a French girl the other day. And they had lots of play together. You know, they're using Google Translate. They're practicing their words.
Yeah.
You know, it's
They're
like
picking up bits and pieces of French along the way.
And like, oh my gosh, like what a gift to witness them play. Like with this girl for about 48 hours solidly in a like with a girl that didn't speak much English at all and they don't speak much French at all. But they were able to do that and they were able to meet straight away, engage straight away, play straight away. They were playing outside activities, imaginative games, building Lego.
Yeah. I now know that cash.
Oh, good one. Yes.
Because the girl was saying, cash. Tu veux jouer cash?
And you were
And we're
like, cash.
cash. What? Like,
Cash
John,
money.
like money. It's like, no. Cash is hide and seek.
Such a good
French for hide and seek.
But then I knew that then the mum came back and she'd bought another T-shirt for herself because Tagazu T-shirts.
She loves.
They were good.
Oh yeah,
they are
I
good.
mean, Tagazu T-shirts
They
are
are
good.
so good. And she was like, cash. The mum went cash from the husband. And I was like, I know what cash means now. Hide. So good. I was like, yeah, cash. So yeah, that doesn't exist because when in school children, often, for example, in the summer holidays, there were children around the pool at a villa that we were at who were clearly schooled children, didn't engage with our children for 2-3 days.
Yeah.
And our children are saying, oh, but they don't want to play. And we have to say to them, yes, because they already have their group of friends back home from school. And so they don't engage outside of those community spaces that exist for them. And it's the home educated children that they meet that will instantly form some kind of engagement. And it doesn't mean, because even when we weren't in a van, you know, like we went to home educating groups, it doesn't mean that and we have like nuanced conversations around, well, that child, you know, the behavior was like X and I found that uncomfortable. And it's like, okay, we can have a conversation about that and how we can then, when we meet that child again, what that relationship could then look like. And so they're never shying away from that. But when I first took them to home education groups, they were shy and they didn't engage, and it was a lot of conversation, a lot of like, well, this isn't my friend, you know, because it's so easy when it's a friend from school. You already have that, so you don't even have to make friendships outside of that. And I think it's a crying shame because then we're missing out on the potential of community and socialization away from what is the binds essentially. You know. But then I want to speak to the fact that actually we're in a situation where I still feel deeply uncomfortable around the fact that they don't have a base and they don't have the community around them in the atypical sense. And we've spoken a lot about that with parents.
This is the thing, we are not saying that what we're doing is like the answer or easy at all in terms of that. Sometimes it is tricky in terms of socialization, because sometimes you go a couple of weeks without seeing other children. Yes,
and we have the blessing of 3 children who play together. I will say that if somebody is finding that uncomfortable with a child that's only, you know, a single child on their own, then there are groups online that exist. I mean, for example, Theatre of Science, bloody brilliant. It's a free online science thing. She does Lego stories with science. She's like an ex-science teacher.
She's absolutely, she's brilliant.
And she engages with live events. So that's great.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
you can join that. So I know that that's not, but look at the real world that we exist in, where some of us are working from home and having Zoom calls. What's the difference? Some of us are then going to like London to meet up with our colleagues. So a child that's in this kind of environment, that's kind of more real world with where the adults are at. And also just to speak to, if somebody's then saying, because we all know Karen's going on about it, yeah, but that's the real world, isn't it? You sometimes don't like people. It's like, yes, Karen, but if you were at fucking work with an absolute arsehole, right, for like 1 year, that you'd be out.
Yeah.
you'd either hope that the arsehole was out or you
Yeah.
could move. But what we're doing is we're forcing a child into an unnatural situation where they have no choice but to stay with that person.
Yeah.
Like that child had no community, no friendship really for 6 fucking years of his life.
It's tough, man.
And his like prime years. So his prime years, that child speaking to that, is that he had the ages of 5 to 11 where he is forming his relationship with himself and those around him, and what he thinks about himself is like solidifying. Is that like why he had a meltdown? Because obviously it's not the fact that it's just that I'm not liked.
Yeah. Like complete, like almost like an identity crisis.
Yeah.
Like, so we were going to talk about specifically about homeschooling hubs.
Oh, a homeschooling hub is a community of people that come together who home educate. So I don't know why they're called homeschooling.
Yeah, they normally are called homeschooling hubs,
Yeah.
which is just total wank.
What it is, it's essentially parents who, most of the time, it's a paid for environment where children come together for a week, a month, sometimes even longer, like 6 months, somewhere in the world, and they engage with activities such as outings, and like sometimes it's run by parents, sometimes it's run by educators, sometimes it's run by local people who are being hired for essentially the job of like coordinating and facilitating activities with the children. Now, there's groups called World Schooling Hubs, and they exist all around the world. There's apps that people have made to connect. We have tried like the World Schooling Hub, World Schooling like meetups. Those apps, I mean, they've done their best, but they're just not great. The pluses of that. So, you know, if you have a child, a lot of the time it's children who are like haven't had that community that they want, and they're like parents are looking for something outside of school, but they haven't been able to find exactly what they're looking for, and the hub kind of provides them with hope that it exists for them somewhere.
This is the thing, like on paper, that feels like really good. And in general, the idea is that they're sort of, I don't know what the word is, like sort of like a holistic vibe, like a...
Yeah. The problem that you have with hubs, apart from the fact, the obvious, is that they're really expensive. That's the first thing. There will be people who are saying, oh, well, this isn't expensive because it's for the whole family to come and live and stay, and it's only X number of pounds or euros or dollars for the whole month. That's cool, but if you already have a living arrangement, or if you're like in the van and you're like, but I don't need the 3-bed house or whatever, like I'm sure there's negotiation and that kind of thing. But on the face of it, a lot of these hubs are very expensive per child. I had a conversation with somebody in Morocco about one, and it was extortionate for 3 children. This is the thing that people forget, is like when you then embark on it and you have more than one child, then it becomes like extortionately expensive for these hubs. There was a hub that was like South Portugal, and they move it around, and it was only, I think to register as a family, it was like €200 or something, and then you just pay for the outings yourself and you join up, and that was a little bit more community based, less atypical hub. The issue that we have with hubs is that there's a massive rise in hubs, because essentially people have realised that they could have their cake and eat it. They are families often or parents that are creating these hubs who already travel or have travelled, and they can see that there is this gap that has been created where basically they could create their own hub in some tropical environment, invite other families into that. They pay them to create the hub, essentially paying for them to continue this lifestyle. So my favourite thing of all time is a pyramid scheme. Yes. I love them. So fine, it exists and that's it. But then we're also ignoring, and this has now become a massive issue because it's going to, is safety of the children within that. Because some of these people that are doing it, they've not got the full checks. They're hiring people that they don't fully know the backgrounds of. Children are being left so that the parents can go and work is sometimes the vibe of the hub. You know, your child can have this experience and you can go and work. You can have your cake and you can eat it. There are some very dark stories on the homeschooling hub pages nowadays.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the thing. So, like with everything, that, you know, there are going to be some good ones, obviously, that aren't going to break the bank. and that are genuinely nourishing. But also there's like a darker side where, you know, some people are making it into like quite a sort of a big business, like profiteering off that.
I'm not being like, some people have had great experiences, and hey, I haven't done one, so how can I speak to it?
Yeah, exactly.
But also, I have a lot of experience in clubs, school clubs, summer camps. I'm a teacher. I've done many a school trip. I've lost a child in Harry Potter World. I have. One of the parents lost a child in Harry Potter World who was supposed to be responsible for it. Found her crying in the middle of the gift shop. I did. And I counted all the children on the bus and realised one was missing. This is the reality of what you're dealing with, right?
Yeah.
Someone else's child.
A much more nourishing thing. We were going to give a shout out to Terry.
Terry. We love Terry.
We absolutely love Terry, who set up like I don't know what you... Did it have a name?
She's called Wild Explorers.
Wild Explorers, yeah.
I love her.
Yeah. And it was just a thing in Kent, sort of in the Thanet area, wasn't it?
Yeah, but now if we shout out to her, everyone's going to go, and it's already busier than it ever was before.
And it was like the money was like a sort of a token donation. The money that she was asking for was like, I'm not even sure, like the things that she put on, I'm not even sure it covered her costs.
She also had to hire that village hall. I don't know if she paid for that hire. But yeah, so a really good, and I would love to be the
It's just a good example of like, yes, you can do the community thing, but just do it for the right reasons. Like, do it, you know, don't try and make it into like a hardcore business.
No.
Just, you know, ask for donations to cover your costs or, you know, that kind of thing. Like,
yeah, I think this is the thing, you know. So Terry ran a group that met every week. She committed to that every week. And I'm looking forward to going back in the UK, and we'll probably go back and join her.
Yeah, I hope so, yeah.
And once a week, she did it in a hall, village hall, like a village hall. And then another week, she would do it outside.
Like a meetup.
I found some amazing places in Kent, thanks to her. I had never been.
So knowledgeable about
she's
like
so knowledgeable.
You know, different forests, different lovely walks to do.
Yeah.
Beaches where you can find shark teeth.
I know.
You know,
that blew your mind.
Amazing.
You didn't believe us.
Amazing.
She would then put on activities in the village hall, art, cooking. Like she would cook every week with the children.
Amazing.
Always biscuits, and she had helpers who would make you a cup of tea, and it was just a gift to go. And we went most weeks, not all weeks. The children had a choice, and they loved it, and they loved the children. And it's a really good example of how home educating can really thrive in areas. And I hope that, you know, somebody who's exploring it can find their own Wild Explorers, can find their own Terry who's got that level of commitment to home education. It started off as a playgroup. That's how it started. And it had moved into home education when her children hadn't gone to school, and she's continued to do it. And actually a lot of older teenagers, just before we left, we went back because we'd been, you know, doing the van, and we'd been travelling around the UK sorting that. And then we went for like one or two final ones. Then I was like, my gosh, Terry, like you have so many older children. Where are all these older home education children coming from? And I said to her, do you think it's the mass exit of the older children from secondary school because that now exists, or do you think that they've just found you? And she said, I think it's kind of a mixture of both. It was very, very fascinating to witness the older children there as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Next question.
We were going to tackle the UK law change.
Okay, so the UK law change, I'm not political in this sense. I am political, but I'm not political in the sense that I haven't read the bill. I've read some of it, but I haven't read all of it. And a lot of people would be more knowledgeable than me on what is
absolutely.
there.
I think you're better than me. I just read the headline.
You haven't even read the bloody... It was me telling you.
Didn't even read the headline.
No.
You just told me.
Yeah.
But that's it. That's all I know.
So basically, and it's happening in New Zealand right now as well, the same thing. Because again, New Zealand was pretty similar to the UK law in home education. So basically, they've passed a bill where it's going to make it not as easeful as it was before. I think the true implications of that bill haven't really surfaced because it hasn't really started yet fully. But essentially, deregistering your child is not as easy as sending an email anymore. You're going to have prior permission, which was never the rule. If your child is SEN in any particular way or has had a previous child protection discussion, it will make it so that there is a lot more to do and probably a lot more touch points than before. And this is what I mean. Whenever you embark on something, just do your freaking research, because a lot of home educators had ignored the fact that basically they had no right to come into your home and see your home environment and see how schooling was. Now, a lot of people would say, well, why? What are you trying to hide? No, you're not trying to hide anything. Remember, these people who are in charge of the home education part of the council have no qualifications in teaching or education. They are simply the people who do the paperwork. So do you want Barry from down the road coming into your home and judging your home based on how your table is set out, what access they have to pens or whatever? Like, do you want that to happen? Now, a lot of home educators would say, absolutely not. They're not coming in my home. And a lot of home educators would also say, my children also are not going to have to be forced to talk to someone that they don't know and be asked intimate questions that don't belong in that environment with that person. And so a lot of people stuck by that rules. But what happened was that because some people were like, oh, of course Barry can come in and see what we're up to, I've got nothing to hide. Then there was a blurred line, because they always say, can we have a phone call? We're going to come and visit you. They always will say, and you have to have read it up and know what the rules are.
This is why that website...
Education freedom is amazing, because you will have that written down, that they had no right to come into your home, and they had no right to have a Zoom call or a chat or an online chat, any of that. Keep it all in writing. Keep it all formal. It's only what schools do, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So
keep the receipts, basically.
Yeah, and basically now they are going to have the right.
Yeah.
I don't know how that's going to look for us living in a van in the middle of wherever.
So, it's like kicking off in all the groups.
Yes.
But the reality is, we don't know
how
it's going to look.
The authorities don't know either. I mean, they've sent us a letter, and some of the other authorities are doing the same. They're saying, we understand that the bill has been passed. It's problematic if you are a parent that's single and the child has education in 2 different homes. They will want to visit both. And what happens if, and this is the part that people don't think about, this is the part that people do not think about, it's often the people who are in a particularly easeful position. You're not thinking about the parents who are split up because there was some kind of violence between and the mum has no contact with the dad for safety reasons, and now there will be an engagement on both sides and she will have to engage with that. It's these kind of things that people are not thinking about, and it will be very, very, very challenging for those parents that don't follow essentially what is our situation, an atypical situation. Although I will say that for us, we have got just this little element of not having a house, and technically our address is not technically the home address.
Yeah, well, maybe keep you posted on that. Maybe that will pop up on a Nemested Diaries or something.
Because, like,
on a future episode.
The thing is there are a lot of people who actually are in the UK and will be travelling the world. Schooling families exist, so I don't know how they're going to do that. The other thing is that so basically you're supposed to join a bill. I can't remember what it's called. I told you what it was called. I've forgotten.
It's literally like it had some very unimaginative name.
It was like some kind of home educator list.
It was like the deregistration bill, list or something.
And so even if you are deregistered, you have to now join that list. And then when you're on that list, they have 15 days to email you and tell you that they're going to come and visit you or something like that. And the argument of the home educating community is like, how the fuck are they going to physically do that? How are they going to physically, when all they've been doing is sending one email a year checking in. Now they've got to visit every home educating family within a certain day.
This is the thing, like, in reality, like we say, the infrastructure's not in place. So I think that there's going to be a bit of a lag, isn't there?
Yeah. And now they're trying to do something very similar in New Zealand. And yeah, basically whatever happens in the UK is likely to happen in other places around the world. And so home educating. And, where I come at it from it's my perspective. It's that it's a clampdown on the freedom.
Yeah.
It's the system. Yeah.
We'll keep you posted how it looks in reality. That was kind of it. We're gonna wrap it up.
Brilliant.
I mean, what would you say to the people who are like umming and ahhing about taking their children out of school and doing home education? What would you say to those people? Because it does feel overwhelming.
Yeah, I think a lot of people turn around to me and say, well, you are a primary teacher, so you kind of get it. But what I will say is that I don't get it because I'm a mother. I'm not their teacher, right? And there's two different camps to be in here. And so the way I approach it is the way that I believe my children thrive in this kind of approach, right? It's like the approach is that we educate as we go. There's no like worksheets and sit down formalities in the sense of what I would have been doing within school structures. What I'm doing is I'm listening out for verbal structures, and I'm witnessing what they're writing and what they're doing, and I'm hearing the storytelling, and I'm hearing the language, and I'm listening to their socialization, and I'm witnessing them picking up on facts. And like only the other day it was like we went to Croc Park. Oh, teaser.
Coming soon to Nemestia Diaries.
Croc
Chat
Park.
about Croc Park.
Me, the adult. What's the difference between an alligator and a crocodile? Is it that? Hold on. I thought
No
crocodiles
idea.
didn't live in water, but there was loads of crocodiles in water. So that can't be right. He's like, Mummy, the shape of an alligator. I don't even remember the fact, but he told me the shapes.
Yeah. He basically said the difference.
So, yeah, it's not that that's, high-flying shit, but like I'm saying that what I'm witnessing and what's evolving is really fascinating. And I think that a lot of people put a lot of pressure on that essentially what was at school should be recreated at home. And I think my first guidance on that would be, as a primary teacher, you cannot create what existed in school at home, and neither is that the point. Your child will not thrive, and you will not thrive with the pressure. And that is what I have seen in all these home educating groups, is the amount of pressure that these sometimes single mums are putting on themselves with their children. Putting pressure on a 7-year-old to write with full fluent sentences and every single day is totally out of a 7-year-old's actual psychological ability anyway. It's the system that's forcing that. And so what we have to untangle is, if you are to choose home education, you are choosing something that is not the system. And if you are choosing something that is not the system, then you're going to have to undo what the system has told you that your child should be doing at what age, because that is where the pressure is. A really beautiful encounter for me, as somebody who will always, because we all do worry about the choices that we make as parents, we're all only ever doing our best, right? So I found the capacity. Financially, I am not better off for doing it, because it's hard work to be able to balance it all, right? And also part of the reason for getting rid of everything and selling everything and doing this was so that we could just have a bit of time to really embrace the home education, because it became harder and harder to financially sustain, which I've written about in the book that I'm writing, harder to financially sustain home education and financially in this system that's more, it's harder and harder and harder with the cost of living. Anyway, so it's like, for people to think about, that actually, if you're even listening to this and like, oh, well, I wish I could, but I can't, totally fucking get it. Or I wish I could,
It is.
but if it's I wish I could do it, but I couldn't imagine having to educate my child in the way that school is, well, then you're not understanding what home education is.
You're not really getting it. That's the thing.
And also, if you're thinking as well about, like, I've heard a few flippant comments, which is like, I couldn't think of anything, I quote verbatim, I couldn't think of anything worse than spending 24/7 with my child. Okay, well, I'm wondering where that projection comes from, right? I'm wondering what's coming up for you around that. And what comes up within your relationship with yourself and your relationship with your child for you to be in that. And I'm wondering how going to school, if you're saying like, well, actually, it's not about the school or the home education. I could actually get on board with home education, but I just couldn't imagine 24/7 with my child. Is that because the 24/7 with your child looks like the child who is dealing with the school system? Because a child that's dealing with the school system is not the same child that is dealing with a home education setting. I can tell you that those children won't look the same. Teddy, who is at school, will not be the same Teddy a year, and it takes about the kind of undoing.
Rule of thumb.
Rule of thumb, and I witnessed it with our children, very much so, was about a month of de-schooling per year that they were at school.
Yeah.
So, for example, like Arlo was at school for 5 years. So about 5 or 6 months down the line, he was not the same child.
100%. And you definitely did see, like,
Yeah.
it took about half a year for him to sort of fully, like,
Yeah.
right.
Oh, right. This is
Right.
it. I can actually find safety
Yeah.
here. And yeah, the encounter was with this very American mother, single mother of 5 children with older children. And she said to me this, we're in the middle of this farm in Kent, and she said this sentence to me, and it really stuck with me. She was full of beans, like big energy. She said to me, I always say, childhood cannot wait, but education can. And that really stuck with me because she's so fucking right. Like your childhood, the reality is that childhood just disappears. Like Arlo is 10 this year, and education will happen. So the parents that put the pressure on the child who isn't doing the times tables or isn't writing like Joe Blogs down the road, but then that child is like creating amazing things. Well, that focusing on the joy that they have on a certain aspect of life, then that's a schema that needs to be, sorry, I'm using like jargon, but that's kind of like something that needs to be explored for them. So like Arlo, a good example is like when Arlo left school, he used to, and then he stopped when he was like going into like later on down the line in school, throwing cars down a ramp.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just putting cars down around cars. As a toddler, he would constantly put cars, cars, or monster trucks, and that stopped. And what was fascinating was he went back to that, wasn't it? And he was endlessly throwing cars down the ramp, building his ramp, throwing them down the stairs, throwing them down the garden, throwing cars. He hadn't completed. So this is a psychological, this is like the psychological aspect of where we're going. But it's the truth of it. He hadn't. A child will not finish that process because school will take them out of that process. Like psychologically, a 7-year-old should not have a pen. A 5-year-old should not have a pencil in their hand until they're at least 7. There's a reason why Scandi countries do that. It's because once you put and force writing in a child and force it, it takes out of their creative side of their brain and forces them into logical. So essentially, what we're seeing is that he is a really good example. He had to complete that. He had to complete that schema. And then what was interesting was I said, do you want to bring any cars in the van? He didn't bring any, did he?
No.
Not a single one.
No.
And he has mentioned it a couple of times, but he's just like, okay. It was like, completed it.
Yeah.
No,
it was.
And it's the same for like Xanthi. She still does imaginative play and like, I mean, the setup is pretty impressive.
Elaborate.
It's elaborate, imaginative play setup.
I mean, we had to tidy it away to set up the podcast.
We're
equipment.
talking
It took us
like
ages.
we're talking full worlds that are created.
Yeah.
We're talking Sims without the cheat code.
Yeah.
And like she will play and play and play and sing and play, and the dolls are singing with each other, and like she wouldn't get the chance to go. And I mean hours of that. She wouldn't have time at school.
But it makes me sad to think of the potential, the other universe where Xanthi was still at school. And
well,
she
it wasn't going well for her.
Yeah.
So that's just some points that I would love to make on for our children specifically.
It is overwhelming, and it's not necessarily easy, but the school run is not easy.
No. The daily...
It's stressful. It's dysregulating.
Yeah.
All these aspects.
Yeah.
Remembering spellings, remembering parenting. I mean, all these things that are tied into that system, that education, that schooling system, you know, they are difficult
Yeah.
to sort of, and they can dysregulate the child.
Yeah.
And they certainly dysregulate the parent as well.
Yeah. So it's like, what do you want? It's like, again, utopia doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And, you know, you have to pick your battle, pick your
absolutely.
weapon, pick your...
There's definitely days when you're like, it'd be nice just to have a few hours without the children. Oh. Imagine that.
Well, we recorded a podcast, they're outside. Because today they were like, I'm going to be outside on the rug. I'm like, fine, we'll have an hour.
Yeah.
But like, we don't have that space ever.
Yeah.
We have to go to bed when they go to bed, else they won't go to bed because they can see that we're up, for example. Although they're a bit better now, you're working more in the evening. Like, they are with us all the time. So it's just something that we're happy to navigate, because the undoing of school was too much for my nervous system and their nervous system. So I would rather put up with the daily regulating and being with them all the time than the huge, massive, like, coming out of school, dysregulated as fuck, dealing with really stressful evenings, dealing with really stressful mornings for that few hours that we got from them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The anxiety is just not worth it.
For us.
And for us, it has felt like a positive.
Yeah.
Absolutely, overall.
100%. Anyway, the children are having the best time.
Yeah.
I think it's just, you know, I think people don't know where to start, and I totally get it. So if this has been of use, then I hope it has, and I hope that, you know, we can continue to talk about it as we go, because it's a journey. Hoping
that it's like a food for thought. But as ever, you have to do your own research and see if this kind of stuff is right for you.
Yeah, that's the point.
Yeah,
that is the point.
Don't take our word for it.
No, fuck, don't do that. Please do not
what
do
we
that.
know?
No.
But yeah, thank you so much for listening.
Next week we'll be back with
bit of Nemestia Diaries.
We've got some. Honestly, I can't even.
Some doozies, actually.
Some great ones.
I mean, the mule with trousers. We thought we'd peak with that, but no, there's some doozies.
That was quite. I don't think it's all that funny, but it is. There's some narratives.
Yeah. There's some interesting stuff. Anyway, thank you so much for listening. Thanks.
No mess here.